love riding my bike. I love running. I don't care what they think about it. I love it.
At that point, when I knew I was going to win, chills just went up and down my entire body.
I don't believe there are any good or bad foods. Food is food.
I still feel so passionate about getting that record that I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
As an athlete, I was like, what's my story, or what's your story? What can you learn from it? And what can you teach people?
Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm Haley Chura, joined by Alyssa Godesky. Alyssa, this is a very fun, special show this week because it's all about beginnings, new beginnings, beginnings in the sport, and this new beginning of summer that I'm calling it, because this is a great time to get into triathlon. And you and I have been in the sport for a long time. It's given us a lot. And we are finally at the point where we get to give back. Are you excited?
Oh, I'm so excited. I love when I get to realize that I didn't compile all this knowledge for no good reason. I get to share it.
It was all for this podcast, and it will live forever on the internet and hopefully help out a few people. And I think even if you're listening and you're one of our regular listeners, you've been listening for years, you're a veteran of the sport, maybe there's something you can pick up and learn. I think you and I have talked about a few of these things, and I'm like, oh, Alyssa has some good insight on that. Or, I mean, I wish I would have learned that one a little earlier. So I think there's a lot to take away here for anyone of any level. And maybe it also helps us, if we are veterans in the sport, help beginners, like what kind of questions beginners might ask, and helps us be a little bit more welcoming. Something I strive to do, don't always succeed with, but you know, that was one of my New Year's resolutions, was like to be a little bit friendlier to just like random humans. And I'm starting with, in June, random humans on the internet.
You got to start somewhere, right? I mean, that's good. Yeah, we'll take that.
Thanks. Okay. Well, Alyssa, we're going to start off by talking about our own first triathlons. Do you remember your first triathlon? When did it happen?
So I was thinking about this. I actually tried semi-recently, like a few months ago, to go back and find the results. And unfortunately, the internet didn't exist in the way it exists now. And so the results apparently are like just scraped from history. But I want to say it was this triathlon called the Nailers Beach Olympic Triathlon in Virginia. And I would guess it was 2006. It might have been 2007. And I was racing with the University of Virginia triathlon club team, actually. So even way back when, my roots were in collegiate triathlon in a sense, right? And so we had a very hardy group of people who were precious for taking me under their wing, because it's so funny when I think about those days. They all were much faster than I were. And I mean, they were basically doing what you and I are doing, hopefully, to people now, right? Like passing on some information, giving the basics, telling me what to wear, what not to wear, how to like do the things before the race and all of that. And I'm forever grateful to, especially the three people, Andrew, Rudy, and Annie on the UVA triathlon team, who like helped show me the way. And yeah, Nailers Beach Olympic Triathlon, I did it in a bathing suit. And it was like it actually was a triathlon bathing suit, though. I think it was like a Orca bathing suit. So it had a little chamois in it. It was like Holly Lawrence style bathing suit racing. And that's about all I remember.
But you finished. Wait, what was the distance?
I finished.
Sprint distance?
It was Olympic distance. No,
Olympic distance for your debut.
Yeah, I hadn't done a sprint actually for like a very long, I want to say it was like 10 years later, I finally did a sprint. But I did an Olympic, and I literally have no memory of the race other than I must have liked it enough to stick with it, because then I kept doing it. And I did collegiate nationals. I want to say it was that year. Club nationals, it was all club sports at that time, but it was definitely something I was doing just for fun. Like, I also don't remember training in the pool or on the bike really at that time. And so I was definitely like consider myself a runner, and I had been running ultras at that time. And so that fitness was like basically all I was using to get through the swim and the bike portions of the racing I was doing in college. But it was so much fun and it got me hooked. And so I'm forever grateful for that. What about
No, I want to hear first, but do you remember making any like mistakes during the race, or did everything just go perfect?
I cannot imagine it went perfect, but I think it must have gone fine. I do remember being just like very far behind my friend Annie, who was on the triathlon team with me, and she had actually transferred to the university from the University of Colorado, where she was running there, and then like, left that program, came to just do club triathlon at UVA, and I knew nothing about like collegiate running to understand that, oh, that means like Annie is actually really, really fast and probably really like good athlete. And so, but she would like go on these jogs with me at school. So I always was like, oh, I'm the same as Annie. And then the race started. I do remember not being in Annie's zip code at all, but we just had so much fun. It was totally fine. And so that is like literally my core memory of the race. And I guess that's good to take with me. So I have no idea if things went wrong. I think I was like, I was clipping in, I was doing the basics, right, of kind of triathlon, but but it must have been a good experience at that point.
Yeah, because you wanted to do more.
I totally did. I was like, oh, this is like a fun sport. That's the sport I ended up kind of choosing after, getting out of college, going to Baltimore and making friends. It was like, oh, like I like triathlons. I like triathlete people, like they are fun. And so that was how I found my friend group kind of as a young adult and stuff. So it definitely helped to shape me into the path that led me here to the IronWomen podcast.
Yeah. Alyssa, your story kind of jogged a lot for me because I swam at the University of Georgia, and my senior year swimming there, I didn't have like the best year. And so I think I did not qualify for the national championship for NCAAs. And so my swimming career, I found out I didn't qualify on like a Thursday. And so like my entire life I had been a swimmer, and it ended on like a random Thursday. And so it didn't end with like a big meet or anything. It was like I had swam in a last chance meet, hoped they'd take a certain number of people, and I didn't get to make the cut. And so it was like literally just got a call and it's like, you're done. And so all of a sudden I had lots of time. And
you were super fit.
Yeah. And actually it got me into a little bit of trouble. I think I like immediately went out for way too long of a run, and I did not have like I had the aerobic capacity, but not probably the muscular skeletal system to handle happening like that. And I hurt myself, I think, in one day, but, and not too bad. But anyway, I had a few months, like this was probably March, and I had a few months until I graduated. And so I was still kind of really lost and probably not in a super good place. And I think I did reach out to a few people who were on the club triathlon team. And one of them was actually Sarah Brevort, who I think you know as well. Wasn't she end up going to UVA?
Yeah, yep. Yeah. That's like very random, connection.
I know. And so I went and like swam with them because I think I missed swimming a little, and they had some pool time in the same pool. And I was really lucky. My grandparents, my parents helped get me a used tri bike as like a graduation present. So I got this bike, and it was from a woman in Bozeman, actually down the street from where I live now. And so it's so funny, but it was this felt tri bike, and it was honestly kind of too fancy. I had no idea how to shift, how to do anything. But I was like, I'm going to figure this out. And Sarah took me on my like first brick. I remember that, like the first time I ever went for a bike ride and then went for a run after that. And I thought it was just like one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And then I signed up to race the Clemson Sprint Triathlon, which was, I guess it was in May of that year, and of 2007. And I went with a couple people from the Tri Club, and we went and like rode the course, and it was 12 miles. And I remember being like, it was so long. I was like, it was just so far to ride a bike. Like I could not believe it. And I also remember I was trying to like act cool, and like I got to like the parking lot at the end and like forgot, which side I clipped in on, and I like fell right over, and they are like, you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And this might've been the weekend before the race. And so I was like, I'm fine. And so I did it. It was like right after graduation, I went and did this race. And when you are a pretty good swimmer, I came out of the water very far ahead, which was amazing. It was super fun. But then I think I got out of transition and like immediately dropped my chain. I was like trying to fix it. And I have like bike grease like all over my face, like all over everything. I was just racing in a bathing suit. I made it through the 12 miles, but these early races, it was like, it felt like everyone was passing me, every single person in the race, because you kind of have a lead, but then people are coming by on like fancier bikes and then gradually less fancy bikes. And then it's like grandma on a beach cruiser. And I was like, yeah, is anyone left back there? But I got through it, got through the run. I don't think I like placed exceptionally well. I don't remember. And I think like you, it is shocking how hard it is to find some stuff on the internet. Cause I've also tried to find old swim results from like me and my swim friends, and we're like, you can't find it. And I was like, wait,
It's all gone. It's so sad. It's all gone. Yeah.
I know, but I know it happened, but I know I don't believe I wasn't one of those people that won my first triathlon, but it was one of those things where I came out of it being like, I bet I could get better at this. And it was a really fun group and fun atmosphere. And I am similar to you, very thankful for those people who helped me out in the beginning. And after graduation, I did move to Atlanta and met the Dynamo Multisport crew as it was forming and joined that master swim team, and kind of things really took off from there for me. And I am really thankful for that. But it's hard as a beginner. Like, it is very hard. A triathlon is not an intuitive sport. It is definitely, there's art to it, and it helps to have some people there to mentor you. So hopefully we can mentor a few people, or helps, let them know what worked for and didn't work for us.
Yes, this will be fun to take a deep dive here and see what we come up with. Should we start now? Are we ready to dive into these questions?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Our number one questions that we got out of this, I think, and we even alluded to it 2 weeks ago when you asked me what were your questions about starting a triathlon. It was, it's what to wear. Fashion. Yeah. Fashion is we're starting with fashion as a topic, because,
and if there's anyone to ask about fashion, it's got to be us.
Yes, because that is what people have a lot of questions about. So this first question we have is, do I have to change clothes during a race? Alyssa, let's take a stab at that one.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? I mean, you could potentially change your clothes during a race. I'm assuming for beginners here in this like question in the podcast, you are most likely not jumping feet first into an Ironman. And so Ironman is typically the distance where you will see people like fully changing clothes, because there's changing tents in transition and it's more set up for that. Local races, and other shorter distance triathlons, generally your transition area is like your little space at the bike. And so it is frowned upon to just like get naked in transition and change your clothes. So if you want to change, so there's absolutely, you could totally change into your run outfit for running, but you should go to it like a porta potty, I'm assuming, and get changed in there, and not, I think you can get a penalty or disqualified if you just try and change in transition. And so you don't have to. So because you don't have to, because that's like an inconvenience, right? If everyone's trying to get into porta potties to change, they make triathlon suits of various mix and match formulas that you can wear so that you wouldn't have to change, and you could wear the same thing from start to finish. But there's so much we can unpack. Now that I'm talking about this, I'm like, whoa, there is a lot to unpack about like your options for even what to wear.
If someone doesn't already own a tri suit, they don't own anything specific, they have a local triathlon coming up, they just want to see if they like it or not, what would you suggest they do?
I would say you could go the Alyssa and Haley route and race in a bathing suit. Because that will have, basically you want to swim in something that has minimal drag, right? Same for biking, and really same for running, right? And so with a bathing suit, you could swim in it, you could bike in it, and then you could also throw on some running shorts over it. And like, you can do that in transition openly for the run if you don't want to run in the bathing suit. So that's like super easy. You probably already have a swimsuit from swim if you've been trying to learn to swim or swim training at all. So that would be probably the like minimal, but you could also do a sports bra and a bikini bottom or something like that. I mean, you could mix and match, or I guess if you're going to do that, you could do like a swimming top and a bikini bottom. Basically just not like underwear. I think there's like a rule you can't wear your underwear when you're racing, but
just underwear. And also, this is a big question. Do you wear underwear underneath your tri kit?
I don't. I never have. I'm firmly in the camp of if I'm wearing spandex, there's a very low likelihood that I'm wearing underwear under them. What about you, Haley?
Wait, well, what about a bra? Does bra
Oh,
count as underwear? I'm counting like a matching set. No.
oh, okay. So
Okay, briefs, underwear briefs. No, I don't wear those under any tri-kit, or swimsuit, or if I was to race in any capacity. Because again, the best kind of underwear I understand are actually like cotton, like breathable fabrics, which are probably the worst thing to swim in. And they'll just
yeah.
get a lot of moisture and drag. Don't You don't want that. So I would highly recommend not wearing underwear under any of your cycling kits or triathlon kits. If you want to wear underwear with your running gear, that's your prerogative.
Yes, yes. And triathlon suits. So if you get special triathlon shorts or a tri suit, it's built in with a chamois. And so it's made to like not be worn with underwear, right? And so it gives you a little padding for the bike ride. It dries really quick from the swim. And so if you add underwear into that, you're actually just adding more like possibilities of friction and more opportunities for chafing and things like that, which is like you want to minimize through the whole thing if you can. So I would say if you are wearing a triathlon kit, no underwear. Definitely no underwear.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go back to the sports bra. You do wear a sports bra. I mean, I'm trying kids. Do you not need to? Does anyone not wear a sports bra? I guess in a swimsuit, you don't, maybe.
Well, you can definitely race in like the tank with the built-in. So some tops,
Okay.
if you're racing in a two-piece kind of with a built-in bra, I would not personally, but I know some people do. If like I have pretty small boobs and I don't need that much support. And so I definitely did not ever like double up, but I do think that's an option. And I think that's totally like feasible if you want to, but I think if it's built in, you have the option to choose, I guess, for what's more comfortable. But with like aero tops, like you've always raced now in like an aero short sleeve jersey or a tri suit, right? So
one piece. Yeah.
Yeah. So you would want to wear a sports bra under that.
I do. I wear a sports bra underneath my kit. And so I guess this is saying there's a lot of variety in tri kits. You can get, like I think you said earlier, there is kind of a mixed match. You can get two piece, you can get one piece. And what I currently wear is one piece with sleeves, and and it has a zipper up the middle, and I do wear a sports bra underneath that. One, so I can unzip it if it is allowed. And then two, I don't think there is enough support even for me with just the tri kit. It's pretty thin. And the sleeves add for aerodynamics. That's why those are there mostly for the bike, is where they benefit. They also do help with sun protection. And that is very nice if you are racing in an area that's very sunny or a longer race. It's nice to have that actual fabric because there is no sunscreen that's going to last long enough. And so that's where it can definitely help. So I definitely do use a sports bra. We did get a question about sports bras that work best for larger breasts and will also dry fast. Do you have any experience working with athletes or anyone that you know? Have you heard anything?
So I definitely think that there are certain bras that you can wear that will give you more support and be like better. I actually don't have any knowledge really to share, like best case. We could look into it. But what about you, Haley? Do you have any tips here?
Talk with athletes and friends who in the past actually would wear two sports bras sometimes, but I think the technology in sports bras has actually improved over the last couple of years. And I do know at least one woman who really likes the Oiselle sports bras, that some of the ones, especially that like clasp in the front, just offer a lot of good support, and you only have to wear one. And I don't know about how fast they dry and about chafing. I think that'd be something you kind of have to try. I personally find that most like spandex dries pretty fast. And also I'll add that like I pour a lot of water on myself during hot races. And so my goal is to like never be that dry. So chafing does become a problem. I think we've talked about Zelios Betwixt. I use a lot of that before races as like a chamois cream, but I'll put it like underneath my arms or around my neckline to also help with chafing. And sometimes chafing just happens and it is hard. And I do understand people have like different skin sensitivities. And so I am not someone who probably had the most sensitive skin, so I'm lucky in that way. But there's a few races that I pour some water on my head mid race and it does, there's a little bit of a sting, but it kind of takes my mind off of the sting in my legs. So, and the worst part is the shower afterwards, but you just, you did something maybe. I don't know. Do you have sensitive skin, Alyssa?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like a whack-a-mole game, right? It's like you remember to put the like chafing stuff in like your sports bra area, and then it's like your thigh that chafes, or like the zipper or something, right? It's like always something different at every race. So I think that is something to expect, that it's probably never going to be perfect. But like Haley said, like oftentimes you're making yourself wet through the whole race on purpose. And so it just kind of lends itself to having chafing, which is you'll get better at managing it, but I do think it's like never going to go away completely. But Haley,
I think
so
if you're someone who does chafe a lot and has sensitive skin, because I've seen friends again who have like incredibly sensitive skin and like a heart rate chest strap, like it will like, I mean, they're like bleeding bad. It's like terrible. And I think if it is that bad, those are the people that probably should change, use that
true.
change tedge and
Yeah,
consider
definitely.
changing into dry clothes when you go from bike to run, and like clean clothes, and like take the time to put on Body Glide or chamois cream or something, some kind of lubricant on your skin. Or I think it is worth it, because it probably is only a minute or two that it takes you to do that, which if you're in a long enough race, that's fine. That's not that big a deal. So I don't think you have to do exactly what everyone else is doing. And even if you sacrifice a little bit of time there, it might make up hours of time, at least like tending to your wounds later.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like if you have a lot of chafing on top of the fact that you've already been doing everything you can, right, to like have it mitigated, then yes, I would definitely suggest that. But if you have a lot of chafing and you're like, oops, I forgot to like do anything for it, right? First, maybe try to use Betwixt or whatever you find to like help kind of be that barrier. But chafing stinks. Chafing is, yeah, I think it's like everyone makes that mistake at least once. And then it's like a rite of passage, unfortunately, with the sport, to figure out like what zones you chafe in, where you like sunburn the worst, right? Sunburn or sunscreen's a big thing to remember too. Oof. Going into your triathlon, because it makes it super uncomfortable for the after part where you just want to be celebrating, and then you're like walking around like a zombie because you can't touch your skin.
That's a good for beginners tip. Yes, do wear sunscreen. I mean,
take the time in transition to put it on, especially if like I have really fair skin, and I would like have a spray bottle there to just like spray myself before, if it's not a race where people are there to like put it on you. And definitely it's worth like, yeah, not frying your skin while you're out there.
Yeah.
Haley, so you raced your first race in a bathing suit. When did you like make the decision to buy a tri suit? Do you remember?
It was actually when I joined the Dynamo Multisport group, and they had like a team kit, and it was like unisex and definitely more suited for like a 6 foot tall man than myself. But I did really enjoy that kit. And I think it did help me a little bit, because it was like, oh, okay, like it was a 2-piece back then with like, sleeveless, long shorts and not the most flattering, but it did have that chamois, like you mentioned, so that little bit of padding, which helped a lot, because that was also about the time when I started doing some longer distance races. And so it was nice to have that. But I will admit, because I have such a long torso and the kit was not made for someone with a long torso, I got that like lower back sunburn.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
That was so bad. And that is something I do not miss now that we have more like one piece. And like I said, the sleeves, that's been a life-changing thing for me. Like I think in recent years, having the sleeves, because I did get some pretty bad sunburns in like just that sliver of skin that would be showing. And even if I put sunscreen on there, it was just like the friction, I think, of like having 2 pieces and having that rub would wear the sunscreen off. And it's just like baking in the sun while you're on the bike. And I had some terrible times afterwards.
So uncomfortable. Yeah, I can like feel it as
When
you're
did you
talking
get
about
your
it.
first tri kit?
That's a good question. I want to say I found a like Pearl Izumi, and it was like one of the first, it was like purple. I think I've talked about this where it was like they made the women's version in purple, and I'm 1,000% sure it was the same as the man's. It was just, purple. And so I remember that, but I liked that. It was like a deep purple. It was pretty. And I think I think I just got my, yeah, I think I got that. And then actually, this is funny too. Once blogging or something started to be more popular, one of my early tri kits I got from Sharisa. What's Sharisa's last name? Why can't I come up with this? And she was a pro at the time, like early days. And I'm looking up her last name. Clarkson. Oh, it is Clarkson. Okay, Sharisa Clarkson. That must be, maybe I forget what her maiden name maybe is. But she did like a giveaway on her blog or something because Zoot was sponsoring her at the time, right? And like I remember found her blog through Hillary's blog as Hillary started coaching me. And so I that was like one of my first pieces of like women's tri-wear, I think, was like she mailed it to me and I won it on a blog giveaway.
That's pretty cool. That is a
Yeah.
very cool story. Well, I think things have come a long way in recent years.
Yes.
I do think that's one of the biggest changes I've seen in the sport in my time in the sport is the kit options, and mostly for the better. I think there's better materials, different materials that help with cooling and evaporation, and more women specific options. And so the great thing with that is that if you do have a little bit of resources that you can devote to that, you probably can find something that works for you. But my advice would be to ask around, and then also understand that like your body, your body really well, and your body is different than other people's. And so something that worked for someone else won't always work for you, but don't be afraid to do your own thing and take care of yourself.
Great advice. And Haley, I put on our question sheet here, put a bullet for fashion etiquette, because I think that while it wasn't asked about, I think that is one of the more intimidating parts of swimming, biking, and running, is that you sometimes like look at the advertisements, or you look at these people or the pros out there, right? And they all, especially in like my beginning days, because I'm not like a fashion person, I'm like, what is it exactly that these people are doing that makes it like look correct, right? As I like was always just coming in flailing incorrectly with my outfits and such. And so, to like give a little glimpse, it's something like sock height for cycling, right? Like I think pure cyclists will tell you like cannot ride a bike unless you're wearing mid-calf sock height or something, right? And then, I think the triathlete though might be like, no, you need to wear like compression socks up to your knees because that's going to be faster. It covers more skin, right? And then some people like 5-inch biking shorts, and some people are like, no, you have to wear 8-inch and cover your whole leg, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, what is the right etiquette? Like, what if I don't like the Jolene swimsuit prints? Like, can I go to my pool and swim in a non-Jolene suit, right? Like, it's so scary sometimes, I think, because it's like a lot of pressure, and you're getting into the sport and you're already spending a lot of money to do it all, right? And then then you have to go find these silly little things to make it feel like you fit in. So what are your thoughts on fashion etiquette?
Okay, I do find it fascinating because I'm always shocked by how often people tell me everything I'm doing is wrong. Because I don't think I get the intimidation thing. I think maybe because I kind of came into the sport having seen the very high level of another sport, I kind of just don't give an F, like I know what it takes to be really good at something, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And that does get me some criticism occasionally, and has through my whole career. I think 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, I used to ride all the time in like running shorts and a tank top. And I was just like, yeah, this is what I ride in. And I mean, there is some practicality to kids, like having a jersey, having pockets, especially as I started going longer, being able to carry more, definitely does matter. And so I am not someone who is ever going to probably be wearing the correct sock height. But guess what? If I stay in the sport long enough, what I'm doing becomes popular.
I have noticed that actually with a lot of things that we have been seeing in the sport. And I'm like, oh man, I should have saved that box of like try stuff I gave away 10 years ago, because man, it would be back in style right now, right?
Yeah. And I think this might be something, my advice for the people, the haters out there who like to give people like advice on these things unless it's a practical thing. Like a chamois is great. Having
Yes.
pockets is great. If it's a practical thing, great. But if you are just someone who's like, you know, a sock height just because of an aesthetic, like great. If you want that aesthetic, great, but do not push that on other people. And if you are someone who really enjoys wearing neon spandex, wear neon and just get fast enough that no one gives you shit. You can, or at least you can ride away from them very quickly if they do.
Or be like, I'm hashtag be like Haley. So you can talk to
Yeah,
her.
or
if
send
you
them
don't
to
like
me.
this.
Send them to me. I'm like
Yeah.
getting pretty good at this. My neon spandex covered skin has gotten thicker over the years. And
Yeah.
so I can tell them to F off for you. But
I will say that whenever I have been picked on or like told the aesthetic has to be something other than what it is generally not from another pro, right? I will say that. So like I can guarantee you as a beginner triathlete, if you show up to a race, the pros are worried about their own race. They're absorbed in their own world. They like are just happy that age group athletes are out there and like part of the race, right? We are not inspecting your gear or what sunglasses you have or what belts you're wearing. We're not looking at anything on your kit, right? And so if you, I will
but if
say
you're
that.
wearing
That's like,
my kit, I'll give you an extra cheer.
Oh yeah.
But no, and I will give you a high five. But it is fascinating. You brought up the Jolene bathing suit because that is one that people have brought up to me before. They're like, you need a Jolene bathing suit. And I'm like, I have been doing this for like 34 years and I've been just fine without a Jolene bathing suit.
And
Why
it's like,
do I need
actually,
that
don't you
now?
want the bathing suit that I'm wearing because I'm like way faster than you, right? I mean, that's how, right? So it is funny how, I mean, people
They
are funny,
look
but
great.
again,
I can see they are flattering. And I do think if it makes you feel good and it helps you like get to the pool because you get to wear that suit, I'm all for it. I am all for it. But
you don't
please
need
don't
it.
tell me I need a certain thing.
Yeah, and Haley doesn't.
Same thing with goggles. I'm like, you should have seen the goggles I wore in college. I mean, I did wear the like Swedish goggles, which I don't wear anymore because you can get like smacked in the face.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it is fascinating the aesthetics that are in triathlon. It can be very intimidating. And so I do understand that. I do understand the intimidation, but I do think if someone is intimidating you in that way, then they're not worth knowing. So just embrace what makes you feel good. And again, or send them my way.
All right, Haley. So our next segment is swimming. So one of our questions is, what is sighting? What is sighting, Haley?
Oh, it's looking where you're going, I guess, in a pool. Sighting usually to a buoy. Like you have a somewhat fixed point, and in open water swimming, you do have to like pick your head up a little bit and look for where you are going because most of the time you cannot see anything. Unless there is some kind of race where there's a cable underneath the water or something like that. Most of the time.
How do you even know? Are the buoys numbered? How do you know where to go? I never have this
Sometimes.
problem because I'm always following people. So how do you know, Haley?
Okay. So what I will
Someone
do
gets
is
to a race and they're just seeing these buoys out there. Which
Yeah.
one do you swim to first?
So usually there's a map. That's where I'd probably start first is like look at a map of the course. And sometimes that's online ahead of time. Sometimes it's at the race venue and you can look at a map and get a general feel for the direction that you're swimming and general course from land. And then hopefully if the buoys are set up the day before or the morning of, if you're getting there the morning of, you can kind of look at the course. And usually for most courses, it's either multiple loops or it's not that far. You can see it all from land. And so you'll be able to see the entire buoy, the entire course, which kind of gives you an idea in your head. Okay, I'm, keeping the buoys on my right. And then maybe the, buoys on the way out are orange. The turn buoy is red. And then on the way back, they're yellow, that kind of thing. It might be that kind of thing. And so it is something to pay attention to in the day before or the morning of the race. Sometimes they are numbered. I think in Ironman races, they are numbered, which can help and kind of just like give you an idea of where you are. Sometimes my brain doesn't work that well in races, so I can't remember. Are the numbers going up? Are the numbers going down? Do we have like 10 orange and then 10 yellow? I definitely have done that in Augusta once where like I thought there were just 10 and it was like only 10 orange. And I'm like, we're done, right? I was like, no, we're halfway. So if you are with it enough to do that, I think that's great. But one of the things that I personally do is if you can sight to the turn buoys. And so usually, hopefully those are a little bit bigger, and the straightest line is going to be like straight to the turn buoy. And I like to do the like little alligator eyes kind of method where you like bring your head up a little bit, but you don't actually breathe while sighting, unless you're in the ocean. That's a little bit different. But if you're in a lake or a river that doesn't have crazy waves, like, you know, if you want to bring your head up as little as possible, kind of sight to that turn buoy and then get back down and get going. I trust almost no one else's sighting. A few. Lauren Brandon, I trust her. There's a few people I'm like, if I'm swimming with them, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I can keep my head down and just follow their feet. But for a lot of people, I don't trust their sighting because a lot of people go off course. And so I'll follow my own line. And I think even if people were watching Singapore, I think that one, I took a fairly different line than Lottie Vilms, who was our most recent guest. I just felt I was actually further away from the buoy line and she went right along the buoy line. And I just felt that it was actually like straighter to go a little bit further out from the buoy line, straight to that turn buoy out. And I think I caught her. And so maybe I was right. Like maybe it might have only been like 5 meters shorter, but I think in that moment, for me, the benefit of taking a better line was bigger than even the benefit of sitting on her feet. I just felt so much more confident in my line. And so that is a decision that is going through our heads. And so sighting, there is no like 100% accurate way. It's kind of part of the sport is that you have some challenges sometimes. If there's fog, if there's the buoys are moving, if there's waves, there are some challenges of that. And I just try to remind myself, okay, everyone is in this situation. Just try to make the best of it. And I've stopped before, Alyssa, and taken my goggles off and been like, where's the buoy? So that has happened to me.
I would definitely say that anything you can do to like practice with your goggles, and you like if you know they fog up, right? Like try and get some anti-fog things, like experiment with what works for you, those kinds of things, because and like dialing in potentially, like if you've never swum with dark goggles, right? Like, kind of trying to get a feel for that can make a big difference, even though you can totally show up to the race with whatever goggles you've been swimming in and get it done and it'll be fine. But, those are things as you fine tune your swim that you might want to experiment with, because I too have had to stop and like clear my goggles and be like, where am I going? This is like, because sometimes it's choppy, sometimes it's the sun's really bright, sometimes it's all of the above. And so that's all normal. Like you might have to stop and look too, like, but hopefully you are also around other people. And so you can, maybe they're not swimming the straightest, but maybe it is just the easiest, like the path of least resistance, if you're not a big swimmer, to just kind of stay in the pack and get through it with them. But that does bring up, Haley, swimming with other people can be scary. It can be intense.
Yes. I mean, again, I'm bringing up all my most recent races, but Miami, 200 Miami, when I was like in that little pack of like 5 and it was very intense. I thought I was in a pack of 50. I was like, where did these people come from? But I also can think back to some of my early races. I think my very first Kona in 2009, when it was still like a mass start, was terrifying, horrifying, definitely very, very scary. So I understand that it does change the dynamic. And I think an easy way, if you actually just swim in a pool, is if you end up in a kind of crowded lane, you can kind of change your mindset to like, okay, this is me practicing swimming around to other people. And even if they're going a very different pace than you or doing a totally different workout, you're kind of just getting that body awareness of maybe having to pass someone, maybe having someone pass you and having to circle swim, having to just kind of like deal with those slight movements and the disruption to your stroke that I think can be valuable. So even if you don't have access to a group or open water, you can practice that probably at your local pool.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to do it. I think even if you have one person that you're either at the race with, and maybe if they're letting you in the water even ahead of time, just like, try and cram in swimming around them, right? To get that feeling a little bit, because it's just different, I think, to swim around other people. If you are totally someone who, I definitely coach a lot of athletes who just get really super anxious around the swim start. I think it's like a scary time. It's scary for athletes who are like really good swimmers sometimes, right? Because like your adrenaline's pumping, it's all going. And I think there is like no shame in getting your own space. Your wave will go, you can seat yourself in the back of the wave. let everyone kind of go off in a hurry, right? And then like ease into it yourself. That's like totally an acceptable way to start. I think it's totally fine if like you take the slightly longer route, right? The Lottie Wilms route, right?
Mhm.
to that turn buoy, just to like knowing it's going to give you some more clean water and space and not have someone right like doing their stroke on top of you. So typically if you are picking a like local race or a smaller race for your first time, there's definitely ways where you can kind of let the group go and then kind of follow in. I would just say, yeah, like start yourself at the back. Don't try and get space in the front of the wave, because that you will get swum over. And if you do find yourself in a position where you're getting swum over, Haley, when I raced Lanzarote, I think they still do this. I was watching, they start the pros. So it's a mass start still.
It's
one of
only
the
like
few mass
10 meters ahead or something.
and you literally have the
Oh,
line of pros, like all 8 pro women, just like standing there meek. And then you have like 1,500, 2,000, whatever it is, age groupers, primarily men at that race, right?
yeah.
Ready to barrel you down behind you. And then it's a beach start, right? And you're like 20 meters back on the beach.
Oh.
So it's not like your like feet are in the water at that point. And I think that's probably like one of the fastest.
They're like running
Oh.
probably downhill. They probably have a
Oh, yeah.
downhill run at you.
Oh yeah, it really is. It's like I think that was the scariest. That, and then Coeur d'Alene as a mass start is a pretty scary one too, I have to say. And
But it
so
doesn't exist anymore.
yeah, that like lucky for people, the mass starts really are few. And so that's maybe something to go into your like race decision, right? As you're like picking a race. Maybe just find a time trial start, find those age group wave starts, that kind of thing. And it's, there's places that you can manage. And then I would say just don't swim with your fists. Like if you're
Okay.
if you're swimming around people,
Yeah.
just like take normal strokes. I feel like a lot of times I'm swimming around people who are just like start like punching the water, and then by virtue of being around people, they start punching each other. And it's like you don't need to do that. Just keep swimming, keep your head down, keep swimming, and you will get through it. And yeah, it can be unnerving.
I agree. I think this is almost in line with what we said earlier about like if you need to change, take that time. Like there are certain things in every distance of triathlon, because even a sprint is pretty long. I think if you need to take a slightly different tactic, it's worth it usually. Like which can include like starting later, taking your own line, going a little bit toward cleaner water. If you look at that Singapore start, I mean, how we lined up, like the most direct line, India Lee got to pick first and picked, right in line for the most direct line. And Lucy Charles Barkley got to pick second and picked the furthest out. And it was the 100% that's to get clean water really quick. I, of course, picked right next to her because it's very cool to start next to her. But sometimes it has to do with currents or what's under the water. Hopefully it's not incredibly unequal, but there are benefits even for the fastest swimmers in the sport to have a little bit more clean water and have less contact, even if you have to swim a slightly longer route. So if you're waiting a little bit to get in and you have to pass a lot of people later, then it might be worth it for you. So weigh that for yourself.
And Haley, we added a bullet to this one about swimming terminology. So this might be for people who are new triathletes doing some swim training. And it's something that you and I were saying as coaches, we run into it quite a bit where people may not know the swim terminology. And then I was like, wait, do I know the swim terminology? And so Haley's going to quiz me about if I do.
I did, because this is something I'm definitely guilty of. And any of my coached athletes, probably there's certain things where they're like, what is that word? But these were a few pretty basics, but I think ones that I do get questions on. First, Alyssa, can you explain the difference between ascending and negative splitting?
Yes. Okay. So if say you have a set like 5x400, right? And you were told to descend. If your coach said descend a set 5x400, I would assume that you are swimming 5 400s and you are starting the first one easy-ish, right? If you are given like no other guidance about how to start, right? You start that one fairly maybe like aerobic easy. And then each rep, so each 400, you are consistent in your pace across the 400, but then each rep, you are progressively getting faster so that your 5th 400 would then be your fastest of the set if you descend those 1 to 5. If I was negative splitting 5 by 400, I would, within each 400, at the 200, probably, again, if I was like given no other direction, at halfway, I would kick it up a notch and start swimming faster. And then each of my 400s would probably be about the same time. Like I'd probably be doing those pretty much on average at the same interval or at the same time. How did I do,
That was
coach?
great. That was
Okay,
really
good.
great. What about if it's negative split and descend?
Whoa. So do you combine them both then? So within each 400, you make it a little faster, and then no, but now my athletes get ready for this because
negative split and descend. Yes, you get faster within each 400, and then the 400s also get faster.
So then let me ask you this. Sorry, beginners, this is not something you need to worry about necessarily, this particular, like now we're getting more into the weeds. But so then if you were descending 5 by 400, so the first one, the fast part of that fifth 400, or the fast part of the first 400 you're swimming, so the slowest like one of the descend, how fast is the fast compared to the slow start of the second 400? Do you see what I'm asking you?
Yeah, I mean that, like, honestly, this is probably a really long set to do this, but I would say, I mean, it's faster than the first, like your first 200 is going to get progressively faster, and your second 200 will get progressively faster, I think, like compared to each other.
So that's how you think about it. Yeah, I like that.
That's probably how I'd think about it. And so I love doing like a negative split and descend. I think if you're doing like 3 reps is probably a little bit more like
reasonable to
like pacing it with yourself. And so you're getting faster each 400, but then also within each 400. So then the real big challenge is on that third 400, you start out fast and you have to go faster on the second 200. So that
watch out athletes.
Is real strong.
Yeah.
So I do love a good negative split and descend. I love pacing work, and I know that people hate swimming pacing work with me.
But I think for a beginner triathlete, and if you are going to work on your swim, right, that it's something to definitely, I think, work on, like that kind of pacing stuff, right? And just part of that though is, Haley,
how are you calculating this?
How do you know? Yeah.
So yeah, I know my other one. I mean, okay, this is my other phrase that I was going to ask if you know this. Do you know what this phrase "on the top" means?
Oh yeah. So the pools, I'm trying to make sure we tell our beginners, because those are probably the people who have stuck with us through this episode. So when you're at a pool, there is hopefully a clock that is there for the purpose of like the workouts that are happening in the laps, right? And in the lap lanes. And so I think on the top typically means the top of the minute. So the 0 or the 60 position, right? And typically these clocks, I think, would be analog, like hands rotating around. And so when the hand is pointing on the top, that's, I guess, where it came from, because it could be on the bottom, which would be the 30. Now a lot of pools these days, I feel like, have analog digital clocks, and so you see the numbers, so now you hear more like on the 60 or the 30, right, at a practice or something like that. But you're swimming with a swimmer when they say on the top or on the bottom, because that is what it's indicating. Oh yeah, anytime, I guess, of a certain age.
Actually, the pool I'm in right now has analog clock, but it has one that's like I can barely see it. I'm like, this, I need digital.
And so that's one thing.
My eyes have gotten old.
So Haley, do you wear a Garmin? Are you hitting a lap button on your watch when you're swimming to count how do you know how fast you're swimming? How do you remember?
I do not. So I do not use a watch while swimming. I just have been doing this long enough before smartwatches were invented. And so I feel like I don't necessarily need that. And I just don't need another distraction. And I also just I race with a watch even on the swim, but I don't love having things on my wrists, which is like very pedantic, but I use the clock on the wall. I do know that, okay, and a thing like negative splitting, it's hard. Like sometimes a digital clock, if you're in a really nice pool, they have digital clocks on the side. So you can see while you're going, you can actually like see the clock, and it's like super nice. I estimate, I mean, occasionally if I really cared, I would look up real quick, but I can't usually see the clock. And so it's a little bit more of an estimate unless I happen to have someone on deck who can also get my time. We've been in the past sponsored by Form Swim Goggles. I think that's a way that someone could see the clock right in front of their face. But I also think your estimate can be pretty good, but even if you just use the clock on the wall, or you look up for a second and kind of see it and then practice some sighting.
Yeah, I think I try to encourage people that the clock is a good mental exercise for swimming. It's like also a lot of times swim workouts have patterns, and it's like it's very scary to think about like, oh my gosh, how do people manage this? But then once you practice it, it'll come. I promise. It'll come quickly. And I think learning to use the clock for people who are like, considered maybe non-swimmers, right? Even is a really good skill to have because it will help you improve your swimming a lot because one, it raises the odds that you could swim with people who swim, right? And if they're doing workouts with the clock, you'll be able to partake, and that might boost your swimming speed and ability. And then two, a lot of learning to, I think, swim in a race is learning like endurance efforts, right? And trying to do things without taking a lot of rest between the intervals. And so if you're constantly stopping to check and look at your watch and hit those buttons and, double check all of that, it like truly does. I always have athletes who love to argue with me about this. Like, oh, I do it as I'm reaching to the wall. I'll like put my touch, like, my one hand is touching the wall. My other hand is lapping my watch. It doesn't cost me any time, coach. And I'm like, no, it costs you time, right? Because it is always going to be less time than doing a proper full into the wall, barely looking and seeing you at 1 second to breathe and then go on your next rep, right? So I think it's a good skill to develop, and it will minimize your overall faffing time in the pool too, which means you might be able to swim a little bit more yards, which is a good thing.
I make up for that. I have plenty of fapping time, but then I get to spend it chatting or drinking coffee and not messing with a watch.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, like, if I were to write a workout for you, Alyssa, that was 3 400s on 5 minutes, what does that mean?
Oh, that's a good question. So that means that I would start my first 400 on the top, right? And then my next 400 would start 5 minutes after I left. So if I got back with 30 seconds, if I got back at 4.5 minutes, which I would not.
You're moving.
I am signing up for the Olympics, first of all, but also, well, maybe not the Olympics, but
no, they're swimming like 350 now.
Yeah, not the Olympics, but so if I was getting back in 4.5 minutes, I would take my 30 seconds of rest, and then I would leave on the top of the 5, and then like I would do that for the next one as well. If I came back on the 4:57, I would say my prayers for those 3 seconds and hope I got back a little bit sooner the next time. But yes, so that is hopefully what you mean. Did I get it right again?
Yeah, it is. It's your total time. You have that much time, 5 minutes to swim 400 and to rest. And so if you swim faster, you get more rest. And that's kind of common swimming terminology. I personally, as a coach, I write some workouts like that. I write some workouts based on rest, and it also can get hard if you swim in meters and yards pools, like for your coach. It helps if you could tell them or like, yeah. And sometimes you can do a little like swag of like 10 seconds per 100, difference between meters and yards, but it's a little hard. But so there is a time and place for rest intervals. Like I like rest intervals, especially if you're doing drills or some reason, or it's, easy and it doesn't matter how long you're there. Or if it's something like, even if it's hard, like fast 25s, and I just want to make sure someone gets at least like 15 seconds rest because we're going hard so much, or 20 seconds rest, or a minute if we're going crazy. But then like there is a place for rest intervals, but I do think intervals sometimes trip people up, but they're quite fun, and it helps with your counting as well. I will say that, like, if you, I do think one of my best skills in life that doesn't help me that often, but occasionally does, is my ability to do time math. And I give that a lot of credit to swimming, but it helps with your counting, because if you do know you're swimming about 1 minute and 15 seconds per 100, and you come in, you're expecting to swim a 400 right under 5 minutes, and you come in on the 30, you're like, okay, I probably missed a 50.
I skipped a 50. Yeah.
Like I got one more, or I did an extra or something like that. So it can help with counting as well. And it does keep your brain occupied, if nothing else.
Totally, totally. All right, Haley, we're moving on to the biking section of our questions. So this person asked, they said, I see that the mountain bikes are okay for this race, but then they showed up and there's a special place to rack them and they only see one and they're like, oh no, what have I done to myself? Right. So what's our take on mountain bikes in triathlon?
I think if that's what you have to get you started, great. I mean, you have to understand it is probably not the fastest bike to ride on the road, but if it gets you there, great. Like go do it. You're probably going to get some extra cheers.
Yeah,
if
I was going to say, you're going to get a lot of cheers from people who are encouraging you to get there. I mean, I think, yeah, just understanding the basics that like the mountain bike will be slower than a road bike, which is probably a little bit slower than a time trial bike for triathlon, right? But at the same time, like if there's no rule against it from the race, then you are totally allowed to be riding it. And if that's what you're comfortable on and want to do it, I think more power to you. You can maybe win the mountain bike division that they don't have.
Right. And I mean, if you have to rack it in a special place, I think that's fine. I do remember as an age grouper in Kona one year when we had like the little slots to put our tires in. I remember someone was on like a fat bike. It was doing Kona on a fat bike. And so they had to rack in like a special area too. So it's not the first time this has ever happened. And race directors they're ready for you. But I mean, some bike racks doesn't really matter. You can, you rack by like the saddle or something and it doesn't really matter what size wheels, but don't think of it as think of it as an area of honor, not anything else. And whoever you and that other person are, again, my extra cheers are going to you.
Yes, totally. Okay, Haley, how do you eat while you're biking?
This is a good one. And we did just talk to Scott Tyndall from Fuelin and we talked to Megan Foley, and it is the big thing now is eating more while exercising. I guess this does depend on the length and duration of the race. And I do think for a shorter distance race, sprint, Olympic distance, I am probably like taking in like a Coke or again, I'm not the nutrition expert, but like I'm probably taking in very high calorie like drinks during the race because it's just so short and I feel like my body can metabolize that well. So maybe a gel on the bike, but it's probably not a lot. As we get into the longer distance races, then it does become a little bit more important. I think that right now, the most common trend is like high calorie beverages. So it is like a high carbohydrate drink that's just like in a bottle, but it's thicker, I guess. And there's some good options out right now. We're sponsored by Precision Hydration and they make a drink that is a higher calorie, not the highest possible, but is a concentrated carbohydrate drink. And I think that if that is right there in front of your face, it helps to get in more. But I personally also like to combine that with some things I can actually chew. So I know that the Precision Hydration chews are very popular. I really like some of the, all the, like any kind of chew. And even I've done gummy candies, just like if that's something that's going to make me happy and I can get myself to eat, I will do that. But it's the best if it's easy access. So if you have like a box on the top of your top tube, if you've just taped gels to the top of your top tube, but just making sure it's easy access, you're more likely to actually eat it.
Yeah. So the big thing with that is to practice, like in your training ride, right? Practice as if it was the race. With the race fuel and that sort of thing. And I think making sure that you are comfortable, and it might be that you're not comfortable. And so for one of your training rides, you have to go to a giant empty parking lot, right? And ride around and practice taking something out of your jersey pocket or taking it off of out of your little box on the top tube or whatever. So like, however you want to plan to do it, I think just make sure you practice like several times. Because there will be other people riding around you while you're doing it. You're going to be potentially on a road you've never ridden on, things like that. So just making it so you are really comfortable doing, I think is really important. And I think like there's definitely, again, if you are signed up for the race and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't practice and I need to eat this granola bar while I'm racing. Like, how am I going to do this? Right. I think, you can stop. You can always stop,
Yeah.
right? Safely. Like, you know, I always tell athletes, like, just if you're going to stop, that's totally fine. Use your voice, you know, find a safe place to stop. Don't just stop when other people might be riding around you and have no idea you're coming to a complete stop. But if there's an aid station, after that is usually a good place to like pull off. Often there's bathrooms there and stuff like that. And yeah, you can stop, put your both feet down, get yourself all that, like, you know, eat the granola bars, eat the chews, all of that, and then get going again, you know. And I think you'd be surprised that like you can actually shove a lot of food in your mouth in 1 minute and eat it, and get going again. And so like, if that is what you need to do, then that's okay. I think practicing though, drinking and hydrating, is also really important. And, that, you know, I think just experimenting with like what bottle cage you have on there, what bottles fit in there well, what comes out okay, you know, how does it feel when it gets a little sweaty on the outside of the bottle and it gets slippery, right? So practicing that sort of thing, I think, is really just also something to do. And it's like, yeah, we all spent time in a parking lot one day, probably, you know, like practicing doing this because that's just part of learning the sport.
That's great advice. And I give people the same advice for especially longer distance races, going through aid stations. Like it is okay to slow down or even stop. I would not stop at the very first volunteer.
No,
go
yeah,
further
yeah.
down, you know, but if you do, like, again, signal and like break, come to a complete stop and like get that bottle if you need to, because those races, you can't get through them on just what you started the race with probably. And same thing if like personal needs, if you are, I've had plenty of pro races where an athlete in front of me stops, a pro athlete stops at personal needs, gets what they want, and then they pass me right back. So these are kind of a thread. We've fallen through all of this. Sometimes in these longer distance events, there's times when it makes sense to slow down, take care of yourself, and in the long term, you will not miss a beat.
What about, well, we'll talk about, so a camelback. So Haley, there is a lot of, it's almost like a trendy thing these days. People are trying to shove like camelback bladders down the front of their jerseys and things, right? But I think this question came in mostly as like, can I just wear my like hydration vest, right? Camelback on the bike or the run, and it's just like on my back, and then I don't really have to take my hands off my bars that much. It's just like with me, right? Is that an option?
It is allowed, as far as I know, to still have it on your back. And that was actually, I think even the PTO races, they said, yeah, sure. But it's like not very aerodynamic, but you're no longer allowed to put anything down the front of your jersey on the bike in Ironman or PTO or World Triathlon races, because it's like an aerodynamic advantage. And so you can't put anything down the front, but you can put, you can put a camelback on your back, but so you are sacrificing some aerodynamics. And so that's something that you have to decide, like, is it worth it? Because then you maybe don't have to stop. And so it might be worth it for you to sacrifice those aerodynamics, and hopefully you've trained with it and you know it's comfortable, and chafing might come into play, that kind of thing. But as far as I know, it's allowed. You know who he used to race with a camelback before it was cool? Do you know? Well, Lionel did, but Jocelyn Wong Neal from If We Were Right.
I did not know that.
Yes. I mean, because I raced with her. I know I raced with her once in Louisville. Okay. And I don't know if it was the year you and I were there, but maybe, yeah, we had to talk to her, but I think she might have actually even put like, I should probably double check with her on this, but I feel like she maybe would put like coffee in it, like iced coffee.
Oh, okay.
And so she had like, yes, but I think for the run, she would use it on the run, and she just passed people like crazy. And so she was doing it before it was cool, you know, and definitely. And I did see Lionel in Kona years ago put a camelback on his back underneath his tri-top. And I do think he got some like issues with aerodynamics. I think they found that it wasn't faster, useful. It wasn't faster for him, but that just because Lionel tried it, and you got to give him credit for that. And so, you know, I think for our beginners, if that helps you feel a lot better, go ahead and do it.
All right, Haley, another biking question is, we all know that saddles and sitting on the bike is not necessarily always the most comfortable thing. So does everyone swell down there, quotes, after riding?
Wait, what's down there? You can say it. There's actually a great article recently in Bicycling Magazine about women's anatomy, and cycling and labia and vulvas and how that can impact people. And it is a very real thing. And I think it just came out May 3rd. Gloria Liu wrote the article. So definitely I would suggest using that as a resource as a start. And I think the answer is actually, it should be no. Like you shouldn't have that much discomfort or swelling. No.
Right. Yeah. I think that what the article also says is just like so many other things in our lives, right? The cycling industry had been built towards male athletes and their anatomy and genitalia. So I think that we are learning that it's not the same as like similarly to not wearing a tri-suit that's made for a 6 foot tall man, right? Like we should maybe not be sitting on the same bike seat as these guys. And so I think that cycling can be really comfortable, and it does require sometimes a lot of work and like experimentation and talking to people who are open to helping you find different test saddles and things like that to try. But there hopefully is a combination that makes it comfortable for you. I don't think I've ever felt like it's the most comfortable thing in the world, but it's definitely, I mean, I've ridden my bike for very, very long days. And I can say that like, if you find the right combination of saddle and tri shorts or, chamois and things like that, it's definitely not painful. And it's like, it shouldn't be making you dread riding or anything. Like you should be excited to get on your bike.
Great advice. So yeah, check out that magazine. And then this is a conversation to have, with your doctor. If you are having swelling that seems abnormal, definitely talk to your doctor. And if you want to try out some different saddles, sometimes your local bike shop will have demos that they can help you with. A local bike fitter might even be able to like put you on several in a short period of time. And I know for me, like certain saddles, it's like immediate. Like I can tell, is this going to work or not? I mean, I trust my judgment. And that's another one where like, don't let anyone tell you like this one should work for you or shouldn't. Like trust your own judgment. You're the one who's actually sitting on it.
Yes. All right, Haley. Whoa, we've had a lot more to talk about than I thought we were going to have to talk about with some of these questions. So, moving on to like more logistical questions. Do T1 and T2 usually happen in the same place or different places?
It depends. It could be both. So certain races, we have one transition, and sometimes you're allowed to put stuff on the ground. And so I'll bring like a little towel to mark my area, put everything there, and it's just there. Sometimes you have to use bags. And so you're trying to put everything into a bag as you transition. And so the big thing is to check out the kind of the race guide probably before the race and find out like, is there more than one transition? And are you allowed to have things on the ground? Are you allowed to, are you going to use bags? Because every race is a little bit different. And so you want to check those rules ahead of time, and definitely if they are different places. So, especially if you have to like drop a bike off the day before and drop your shoes off in a different spot, make sure you know where those are and what time it is open for that drop off.
Yes. And okay, we just said we don't wear our watches when we're swim training, Haley. Are we allowed to wear watches in a race?
You're allowed to wear watches whenever you want. If you want to wear some training, I will say I don't have a problem with that at all. Just please don't make me wear a watch. But I do wear a watch during a race. And I think this is something I've seen other athletes actually only put it on for the run. Mm-hmm. I personally don't think I have the like mental dexterity or like physical dexterity or like to put a watch on while running. I actually only use the watch now on the run. I don't use a watch for the swim. And the reason is that swim courses are so subjective, and I don't know how long they are. The data, I don't feel like it's always like data that I necessarily need, my time or anything like that. In the past I would, but now I'm just kind of like, I don't want to be thinking about starting it before the start because I just don't, that's like, there's enough going on and I'm nervous enough. So I don't wear it during that time. I wear it just for fun on the bike, I guess. And I use a bike computer instead, like, so a separate way
entity.
Yes, and I do that because it's right in front of my face. And I have done that in the past. I tried to use a watch and I'm like trying to see and I can't see it. And so I use a bike computer that's right in front of my face, mounted onto my handlebars, or my aero bars, so that I can like see it right there. And then once I'm starting the run, that is when I start using the watch. And actually, like 2 years ago in Kona, when I had my best race ever, highest finish ever. I shouldn't say best race, highest finish ever in Kona when I finished 13th in 2022. I broke my watch the morning of the race. Like something like happened, like it got water in it. And so I had no watch the entire run and I got 13th. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
What about you? Do you wear a watch? Do you wear the same watch? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I think I would usually have it on and then just turn it on and like start getting satellites basically as I'm running out of T2. And so that way I had some kind of feedback for the run, but sometimes I wouldn't wear it until, like depending on the wetsuit. I had this one wetsuit that I just like couldn't get over. Like I wanted to, be able to take the wetsuit off easily and I kept getting caught on the watch. And as watches have been getting progressively bigger these days, it was like so I think I put it on in T1 or T2, but I don't love actually like even wearing a watch while I'm riding a bike. Cause like I use a bike computer. So, but yeah, you're definitely allowed to use it. I would say do whatever's like comfortable and then, kind of go from there. But I do know I've definitely had athletes whose watches have gotten like kicked off in the swim and they've lost their Garmin's. And so, it is like definitely check that it's on tight, I guess, if you're going to swim with it and try and keep an eye on it, I guess. But
one of the reasons I do like swimming with it, I think actually is that then I know what time of day it is before I start, because I do like a lot of my race routine is kind of based on a time schedule and I like knowing like when I have 5 minutes to go kind of thing. And so that is one reason I do carry it on there. But again, I had that time in Kona where I still survived. I didn't know what time it was. I still made it. So sometimes they have a big watch, they're telling the time, that kind of thing. So you can rely on that. Or maybe you have a person with you.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm your neighbor, but I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do that is what you're saying. And I understand like some of those watches are so fancy and so can do so many things. And so you want to get one piece of equipment and they're expensive and that's works. But I'm a little bit more for like the simpler bike computer, simpler watch, but having two different pieces of gear.
And so the next question, Haley, is about switching your watch from one activity to another during the race. And it sounds like neither of us do this, but I do know that there is triathlon mode built into a lot of the smart watches these days. And that's something definitely people use. And again, I've done so many triathlons and I've never used triathlon mode in my watch. Like I've just never, I think for me, it's just like I would probably maybe one time start it and then never think about it. And I think you have to hit the lap button to like, as you're going in and out of transition to get it to go between the activities so that it knows, okay, now this human is biking. Okay, now this human is in transition T2, whatever. And so, there are watches built for triathlon, like modes built for triathlon, and you can use them. And many, many people definitely do that, for sure. But I literally have never done it myself, but I think that so many people do. I'm sure it's a pretty seamless process to do that, but you just have to remember, to hit the lap button. And you guys, you are wearing a chip. So don't forget that you are wearing a chip. You will get times, right? Like, for most races, I guess, if that, like, you'll get your transition times and things like that. I know sometimes having the file is nice and things like that, but, you will, if you don't want to have to worry also about remembering to hit the buttons, then you will get your times.
Yeah. And I think when I did used to use the watch whenever I swim, I'm like, how did I do this? Did I use all the modes? Like, I sometimes would actually start the watch. Like I would
hit stopwatch mode, right?
But I would start it like when they say like 30 seconds to go or a minute to go, because I didn't want to have to worry about it for the swim start. And then, so I'd add an extra minute to my swim, that kind of thing. But I guess you do have to hit lap. I'm like, did I do that? Like, I can't believe it. Maybe I had like not quite as fancy of a watch and like, it didn't do transitions. I don't know.
There is swim run mode, Haley. When I was doing so much swim run last year, I was trying to remember, like I was trying to use that more. And I was terrible at remembering the laps. It was clear I had never really practiced
There's
that
so
before.
much to do in transition, but again, if you can add that to like one of your things, and I always tell people like be efficient through transition. You don't have to rush, but just be efficient. If you're okay adding, hit lap on your watch to that checklist, then yeah, go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Okay, Haley, so our last two bullet points here are, is there any gear that you love that would be essential or so any gear you love, you would say someone could look into, or just any other essential things that a first timer or a beginner might not be thinking about that they would want to arrive to their first race with?
Oh, wait, do you already have an answer? Because I need to think about this a little bit.
Well, no, I was just putting it's not as deep as I made it sound in the question. I was just thinking about the race belt. So that is something. So like if you're, say, a runner or someone, you're used to probably getting safety pins and like pinning your number on, but with the swim and then the bike, like it becomes a little bit more complex to have that number. So there are race belts made for triathletes, and they actually come in really handy too. You can start wearing them in running races and then everyone will know you're a triathlete, and it's so cool. But then you don't have to deal with safety pins anymore. And so it's just like an elastic belt. You could literally get like an elastic from a hardware store and tie a knot, right? And put your race bib through that and put it around your waist. But having something and like a plan in place to do that. Sometimes races give out race belts, I feel like, in the little swag bags now. But a race belt is definitely something you would want to have for your first race, I think.
Yeah, I think a handy piece of gear is actually a couple safety pins. I think I've used safety pins on a race belt to like make sure my bib number is secure on there, just like an extra little way to make it secure. I've also used one. I usually use one on my chip, especially if it's a wetsuit swim, because that way, when you are taking off your wetsuit, you're less likely to lose that chip with your wetsuit, which I have done in the past. And so I think that safety pins are my like little special gear. The other thing I would say is something that kind of makes you feel good can be good sometimes. Like years ago, Alyssa, you gave me a sparkly headband. And so in Ironman races, especially like races where I have a little bit more time, I will put the headband on, and you get a lot of cheers if you can wear some sparkles, and it kind of just makes me feel happy, like to put it on and be like, okay, like here we go for the run. And so I think you can have some kind of like gear that seems superfluous. I can't say the word.
Superfluous?
It's a hard word to say. I don't know. It doesn't seem totally necessary is in the moment. And also, again, that takes like 1 second. I can put it on while running if I need to. And so I think that those are kind of things that if they make you feel good, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I love that advice. That's good. And then last thing, Haley, for a beginner, what would you like advise them in their community if they want to find other people? How should they go about finding a group for triathlon or anything like that?
Alyssa, I think goes back to how we opened this whole conversation and how you and I got started in the sport. Like we were fairly young and we're lucky to kind of be in that collegiate community, but I think that those kind of communities do exist all over the place. I think you can go to your local bike shop and ask if there's any local groups. And sometimes they'll even have women's only groups or beginner groups, and they'll kind of help you learn how to clip into a bike and learn what roads are safer to ride on. I think running stores can often have running groups, and you might meet some triathletes there. I meet a lot of people at the pool, and being a master's group, obviously that's nice because everything's built in as almost like a team. But honestly, I meet a lot of people just like randomly at the pool, or I feel like I'm overly chatty. Yeah, I do faffing. I do a little faffing at the wall. When I have plenty of time. I got like 30 seconds of rest. You can have so many conversations. But or like in the locker room, which I had there, questionable etiquette there, but it happens. But definitely like ask people. I think you brought up earlier, like if you see someone with Ironman branded gear, chances are they're happy to talk about it.
Yes. So use that as your conversation starter. I think that, you can go to a master's and be like, oh, I'm training for this triathlon. They're going to be like, oh, Sarah Lee and Bobby Sue are triathletes too. Right. And like, it's definitely a community that likes to look out for each other. So find those things, group rides, all of that.
virtual groups do exist too. I think that can be really good too. And so if you can find your kind of your niche in social media, that kind of thing, like reach out that way. And Alyssa, you and I kind of became friends virtually through the blogging world. And so it's okay to do that as well. And then have someone that you can bounce ideas off of, and maybe you'll get to meet them in real life at a race. And that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah. So hopefully we helped calm some nerves around what to do and what not to do as a beginner triathlete as you're heading into your first race or thinking about your first race. And if you are one of those people who was curious about all this advice, send us a mailbag and let us know about how your first race goes, or any other questions that you might have now that we've kind of opened this can of worms at ironwomenpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, Haley, I would love to hear some like stories about people who heard our advice and then went to, I don't even know, small lake triathlon sprint, and then crushed it and had so much fun wearing their bathing suit on their mountain bike and had no issues with their saddle, because they were on a good saddle at least, though, and
they had that race belt. But it's okay to make mistakes too. Sometimes we learn through experience. I almost always learn by doing things wrong the first time. So you're in good company if that's it. But congratulations on signing up for that first race. And do let us know. IronWomenPodcast@gmail.com. Let us know how it goes. And Alyssa, it's been fun getting a little nostalgic with you and realizing we're so wise. I love it.
Wise beyond our years. Yes. And next week we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming. But Haley, it was great to chat with you today.
I'll talk to you later, Alyssa.
Bye, Haley.
You've been listening to the Iron Women podcast, hosted by Haley Chura and Alyssa Godesky.
Iron Women is a production of Feisty Media and is edited by Lydia Russell and produced by Ella Natishan.
Head to livefeisty.com to find more podcasts, stories, and fresh perspectives.
Thanks for listening.